All right, I think we're gonna try that again. I don't know what happened. Apparently, I lost connection. It froze about 7 minutes in, but that's okay. We had just started, so we're gonna do it again, and we're gonna see if we're doing okay. Okay. Oh, I gotta redo these polls too. Hello, everyone. Take two. My name is Rodney. If you're watching on YouTube later, or if you're watching on Bleach Report now, thank you so much for coming back and watching another live stream. What was I talking about? Okay, so we're gonna restart completely. The Raiders win, and I said this 10 seconds ago when I did the other live stream, and I'll say it again. I guess the best strategy to use in terms of winning football games is to play really bad teams, and that's what the Raiders have been doing. Last week, Jacksonville with McCorkle Jones was an absolute nightmare, and this week with Spencer Rattler was somehow worse. Now, you know, there's something to be said about winning a game last week when you were playing Jacksonville, where you kind of like stumble into a win. Like at that point, you might as well just lose. This week, the team clearly, the team being the Raiders, was leaps and bounds better than the team they were playing. So this win sits with me a little better. With all that being said, obviously the anti-take people are not happy. So we're going to get into all that. We're going to get into the AP of it all. We're going to get into Aidan O'Connell. We're going to talk about, I still think there's a chance that we end up with the first pick in the NFL draft. We're going to be talking about all of that. But like I said, if you're watching after the fact on YouTube, make sure we're commenting away in that comment section. If you're watching here live on Bleach Report, make sure you are commenting in the chat. I don't know if anybody's in here right now because I had to restart the live stream, and I'm not positive that. Are we going still? Let's see. I just want to make sure that the stream is actually going before I continue any further. Yeah, we're going. We're going. Okay. So I just want to make sure I share this with as many people as possible so we can get people in here talking about the game. Let me pull up the box score here, which is something that I was breaking down initially. All right, so we're going to move myself over here. All right, hold on. All right, we're good to go. All right, we're good to go. So here's the thing that I was breaking down 10 minutes ago before the stream cut out. Every facet of the game we absolutely dominated. We were, again, total yards we were better. Passing yards. We had the best rushing game of the season by a country mile. Amir Abdullah, it was like 2016. He was running through every gap that JPJ and DJ Glaze were creating for him. Third down efficiency, we were okay. We were better than okay. We were very good. They were terrible. 1 for 10. They allowed 4 sacks. We only had 3 penalties for 20 yards. We didn't turn the ball over, and we had the ball for 15 minutes more than they did. So, again, in terms of like the Jacksonville game, we didn't have a lead in that game until 5 minutes to go, and it was like, oh, what is this? You're gonna force us to watch this absolutely terrible game as Raider fans, right? And then you're gonna squeak it out at the very end. But in this game, again, it sits with me a little better. The idea that we won this game because we played so much better than the Saints, it was almost like, well, what are you going to do? Like from the get-go, it felt like we were going to win this game. The only reason the Saints scored at all was because of a trick play. Other than that, they really couldn't move the ball at all. And look, this we'll get into Antonio Pierce's job security. Games like this do help, although I said last week, I don't know how games against bad teams at the end of the season can help a lot. Let's talk about the box score here, and we're going to get into Aidan O'Connell. Okay, so I see people in the chat now. Okay, so people could see me. Good. We're going to talk about Aidan O'Connell and Brock Bowers. Again, I said Amir Abdullah was great. I mean, what does that say? 5.8 yards per carry, 20 carries, 115 yards. He was good, but I think that says a lot about the offensive line in this game. And again, they weren't playing the 85 Bears. I get it. But you got to play the teams that are in front of you. Right? And Brock Bowers was absolutely unbelievable. Jacoby Myers was Jacoby, and Trey Tucker, is a factor when you have a quarterback who can throw the ball down the field. Now let's touch upon Aidan O'Connell because I know it's going to be a hot topic, and I just realized that I'm going to have to do this poll again. So as I create this new poll, I want to see people in the chat giving me their opinions about Aidan O'Connell because the question is going to be, where do you stand with Aidan O'Connell? Now, you guys know where I stand with Aidan O'Connell. I said from week one he should be starting over Gardner Minshew. And I think it's clear as ever now that that should have been the case. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say we would have made the playoffs if Aidan O'Connell was starting, right? But it's pretty clear that we would have had at least a handful more wins. Now, ultimately, is it better that we have a higher draft pick? Yes. And do I think Aidan O'Connell is the franchise moving forward? I don't think so. But I'm going to pose this question to the group right now because there were multiple high level throws that he made. And, as I say this, I could already see the sort of the comments coming in like, "Oh, we're still talking about Aidan O'Connell. He can't move in the pocket. He doesn't have an elite this. He's not a good that." I think there's something that has to be said about his draft position, right? He was a fourth round selection versus somebody like a Bryce Young, right? Because I didn't have these stats pulled up, and I'm afraid to share the screen, to be honest with you, because I'm worried that um, the stream's going to go out again. I don't want to do something that's going to negate what's happening in the stream. Aidan O'Connell, through 15 career starts, has thrown for 3,616 yards, 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 85. If Bryce Young had those numbers, we would be doing flips in the Carolina front office. Now, Bryce Young has since come along and he's getting better. But Aidan O'Connell yesterday in the game made a few high-level throws. There were multiple third and shorts where he dropped the ball in the bucket to Marshall Jr., to Jacoby Myers. There was a play that essentially ended the game where he drifted out of the pocket, hit Jacoby Myers, or no, hit Trey Tucker, in the back left part of the end zone where only that ball could go. Now, if I had to vote on where I stand with Aidan O'Connell at this current juncture, I would say it is bridge starter. I don't think he is going to reach the ceiling of the franchise guy, right? And I'm sure a bunch of people have already commented saying, I can't believe he thinks he's a franchise guy because they haven't gotten to this part of the video because this will probably be a clip out. But my point is this. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are the two best prospects in this draft that we think, right? Assuming Drew Aller doesn't come out. Drew Aller will be a number one. I don't think he's going to come out. Maybe if they win a national championship, he changes his mind. If Tom Telesco and Tom Brady are not willing to trade up from 8 or 9 or 10, wherever we end up, to 1 to draft one of these guys, and Sam Darnold gets franchise tagged or he doesn't want to come here, and we're not going to roll with like a Justin Fields or a Russell Wilson or a Kirk Cousins. There is a reality, and I said this last year, which is why I wanted him to start this year to see what we had with a full season. There is a reality where Aidan O'Connell is the starting quarterback next year because we don't have many options, and he's proven to be able to win a handful of games. Again, I'm not telling you that this is my plan A. I'm just preparing you for the reality of the situation. And there's something that needs to be said about Aidan's improvement year 1 to year 2, especially with 4 different offensive coordinators through 15 starts. You have to understand that he's still basically in his rookie season in terms of games played. I see T Porter 6. Aidan is a gamer, not a full-time starter in this league. Draft best player available. 2026 draft class is much better in terms of quarterbacks. I don't disagree with that. Arch Manning and Drew Aller potentially could be the quarterbacks that you can take the year after. Now, here's the thing that I want to mention. I just want to throw this out there. Aidan O'Connell is extremely accurate. We've seen that. He's a pocket passer. He's not that mobile, and his decision making is very good. People said that about Mac Jones. Mac Jones made the playoffs his first year and then fell off a cliff. Never got any better. Is there a world? I'm just throwing this out there, and we'll talk about Antonio Pierce's job security in a second. Is there a world where Antonio Pierce gets fired, Ben Johnson takes the Raider job? They discuss trading up Shador or Justin Fields or Cam Ward, whatever, right? Sam Darnold if he's available. And Ben Johnson goes, well, let me look at what the Lions did. The Lions took Jared Goff. I'm not comparing Aidan right now to Jared Goff right now. But the Lions took Jared Goff, and everyone thought he was just going to be a bridge for the next guy. They kept Jared Goff. They put weapons around him. They got Penei Sewell to block for him. Great offensive line. They have their defense in the trenches with Aiden Hutchinson. And they run this play action, ground and pound offense with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Is there a world where Ben Johnson goes, I think I can turn Aidan into a poor man's Jared Goff, and we're going to build from the trenches, get a number one wideout for this kid, get a running game for this kid, and let's see what we could do with Aidan in 2025, 2026. Just throwing that out there, because in my opinion, the Lions are the best team in the league, and they do not have an athletic quarterback. They have a highly accurate, decision-making quarterback with a decent arm. That sounds like the potential ceiling for an Aidan O'Connell. So if we can take that Lions blueprint, which is I saw Mo and yesterday talk about, right? The Lions, in my opinion, are the best team in the league. They didn't draft a quarterback. They just traded for Jared Goff. Now, I understand Jared Goff at his time in the career where they traded for him is substantially better than Aidan was. But I gave you the numbers: 3,600 yards, 18 touchdowns, 10 picks, quarterback rating of 85 through 15 career starts. Those are just the facts. And now I understand we played two bad teams, and Aidan looked good against two bad teams. He also looked good in Arrowhead on Black Friday against the Kansas City Chiefs. So we can't say, well, these are bad teams. I saw him look the best he's ever looked, 340 and 2 touchdowns against the Kansas City Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo, the best defensive coordinator in the National Football League. I'm just warning of the potential possibility that he could be our starter next year if we can't trade up, right? If we don't have a Sam Darnold to sign. So I'm going to end that poll. I do think you guys are right, though. Bridge starter is kind of that's where I have him right now. I am now going to discuss, because again, winning this game, we are now drafting 8th, and there are multiple teams. The Titans are ahead of us. The Browns are ahead of us. The Giants are ahead of us. Those are all teams that need a quarterback. I'm probably forgetting the Jets. Are they ahead of us? They might be right behind us. I don't know. There are the Titans. Did I say that? Yeah. So my question to you, I have to apologize. I have to type this poll out now because the stream crashed, and now we're typing this poll out. My question to you, and I want to see in the chat, if we had the chance, if the Patriots were game, if the Patriots have the number 1 overall pick, because the Giants winning their game, which they shouldn't have, shout out to Matt if you're watching. Thank you, Giants, for winning that game. It's given the Patriots the number 1 overall pick, which means they don't want to draft a quarterback with that pick. Obviously, they have Drake May, and I don't think they're comfortable taking Travis Hunter with the 1st overall pick. Like, at the end of the day, he's a corner. I don't think he's going to play wide receiver that much in the NFL. You're going to take a corner with the 1st pick. If they had the 3rd pick, I think they would. My question to you is, are you comfortable trading up for the 1st overall pick? So let me type this out here. Would you trade up for the 1st pick? Question mark. And then the options are going to be yes, no, wait till the combine. Okay. So let's send this out immediately, and let's pin this poll. Now, as I talk about this, I'm going to bring up an image, because 2 years ago, there was a draft that kind of set the stage for the rest of the year, or for the league. It set the stage for years to come, and it was the Bears and the Panthers. Now, if you think back to that draft, there were two quarterbacks that were considered the top two guys, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And the people were like, Will Levis, is he a first round pick? That's kind of the vibe I'm getting with like a Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel. They're like, you're really going to take one of these guys? There's clearly a crop of two that are better than the rest. This was the trade that the Panthers and the Bears executed 2 years ago. I feel a sneeze coming on and I'm fighting it off. To have the Panthers draft number 1 overall and take Bryce Young, the Houstons took CJ Stroud, and the rest is history. The Bears in 2023 gave up the 9th pick overall, which is around where we'd be picking, a 3rd round pick, I believe, a first in 2024, a second in this year's draft, and DJ Moore. So if we're following that blueprint, we'd have to give up obviously our first this year, one of our thirds, maybe the Jets' third, maybe keep ours, I don't know. A first next year, either a second next year or a second the year after that, and maybe like a Jacoby Myers or a Michael Mayer. If you don't want to give up a Jacoby Myers or a Michael Mayer, then you have to give up a second in next year's draft rather than the following year's draft. Now, the difference between this draft maybe and the draft that we're looking at right now, the Panthers, I do think Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are better prospects, or were better prospects at the time, than Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. So you might think in that regard, the price is going to be lower than this. However, there are more needy quarterback teams that you have to jump, like the Giants and the Titans and the Browns, oh my, to get to this moment. So the Patriots might drive up the price to keep it similarly to this because they know there are other teams that are going to be desperate enough to trade up to this moment. Now, the difference in this trade is that this was a great trade for the Bears because they ended up getting the number 1 overall pick in 2024 because the Panthers were still terrible. So you have to think about that as well, right? Are we going to be so bad that like are the Patriots willing to give us the or to take our first round pick? Because if we're like a quarterback away, that pick for the Patriots is going to be like 17. If we go like 8 and 9, if the quarterback is okay, you see what I'm saying? Because the Panthers, they were so bad that year that the Bears got the number 1 overall pick. The Patriots might be more inclined to trade with the Giants or the Titans because they might end up worse for the wear, even if they get a franchise quarterback. Does that make sense? All that to say, I think I'm going to need to wait to the combine and wait for more scouting and film on Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders before I would be comfortable saying I absolutely would trade up for the first overall pick. And also, I want to see how Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart look. Because maybe there's a world in which Tom Telesco and Tom Brady decide we got the 8th pick in the draft and we think Jalen Milroe paired with Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, or AP can get Jackson Dart to be the best version of himself. I don't know, right? If we could just take a quarterback at 8, that one of these guys, Dylan Gabriel, maybe not at the time, just like last year where if I told you Bo Nix and Michael Penix would have gone in the first round in December, you would have said I was crazy. And then J.J. McCarthy goes in. Like, we have to wait and see. I talked about this till I was blue in the face on my podcast, on my YouTube channel, ALLaBorde Raiders. Check that out. A couple days ago, and I believe on the last stream, my number 1 option would be to get Sam Darnold. But the more I watch the Vikings play, the more I don't think they're going to let him go. I don't know if they're going to franchise tag him, but I think he's going to end up with a new contract, and he's not going to want to leave there. But to end this poll, I think right now I would say wait to the combine to decide whether or not I would trade up. But it's definitely a possibility. Like the price that the Bears paid was not that steep, and I do think that Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, like I said, were better prospects at the time than these two. So only time will tell. But the last thing I want to talk about here, as I type this poll, is Antonio Pierce, right? Because AP, there are a bunch of reports that are saying that, Antonio Pierce it looks like his days are numbered unless the team rallies these last few weeks and looks good. And I said on my YouTube channel that I don't buy that because why would AP doing well against the Saints and the Jags win? Like, get like those teams are terrible. Like, we're bad too, but we're not. If you look at our rosters in terms of all the other bad teams, we have the best roster. We have a better roster than the Titans or the Giants or the Saints. Like these teams, the Browns, we have better players that have more of an impact. So as bad as we are, these teams are dumpster fires, and we are dumpster fire ish, right? But with Aidan, with a real quarterback, not saying he's a franchise, but with a real quarterback, we have a chance to beat some of these teams, especially these really bad ones. But I saw a report that said if they do well, he could save his job. In my mind, I think Davis, Brady, and Telesco have their minds made up, but maybe I'm wrong. And I want to ask you guys as I type this poll out here. 1 second. Wait till week 18. Did Antonio Pierce save his job these last 2 games? So I'm going to send this poll out. Create. Pin. Okay. Did Antonio Pierce save his job? I'm not asking, do you think he should be fired? I'm asking, do you think these games actually mattered? Or should we wait to see what we look like against a Charger team that I'm assuming is going to try to win that game and play their starters, although I'm not 100% positive? Can't replace AP just to replace him. Has to be an obvious coaching upgrade. That is a great point. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Thank you for reminding me of what I said in a podcast a couple of days ago. I saw, there's reports that, I don't know if you guys saw on Pat McAfee's show, Dan Orlovsky essentially said that Mike Vrabel knows where he wants to go. And there was a report that said it's the Patriots 100%, and then there was a report that said it's the Raiders 100%. 2 equally, good sources. So it seems like he's mulling whether or not to coach the Raiders or the Patriots. Now, if you just close your eyes and you imagine Gerard Mayo and AP, and I said, which one is more likely to get fired? I would think AP is more likely to get fired. Because at least Gerard Mayo was able to locate the quarterback of the future, right? Nobody expected the Patriots to be good. I don't understand why them getting blown out against a very good football team is like, they look like they're a disaster. It's like, yeah, no one said the Patriots were going to be good. The Raiders had a little more expectation than the Patriots did going into this season, I think. I could be wrong about that. So, with all that being said, people have said you cannot fire Antonio Pierce like T. Porter unless you have kind of a guarantee that you can upgrade from him. To me, that's playing a little scared. To me, that's like, well, if Vrabel says he'll take the job, then we'll fire AP. When you're interviewing coaches in the National Football League, right? I mean, when you're interviewing in any walk of life, for any job, you are selling yourself to that company. You are selling yourself. You are selling your vision of the future to your potential future employer. Mike Vrabel is going to come in and say, we can draft this guy. We can sign this quarterback. This is my culture. This is what I did in Tennessee. This is what I do differently. And we're going to get this thing rocking and rolling. The flip side to that is that the teams who really want Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson have to then sell themselves to those coaches. And if you are not willing to fire Antonio Pierce because you are afraid that you might miss out on one of these head coaches, that shows me a lack of confidence in your ability to sell this franchise on a potential head coach. And to me, that's a big problem. If I'm Mark Davis, I go, look, we have the 7th pick in the draft. We've got Aidan O'Connell, who showed some promise. We have a blue chipper in Brock Bowers, who you can build around. We've got nice young offensive linemen in DJ Glaze and JPJ. We have 2 all-pros on defense in Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. We're going to re-sign some guys like Jacorian Bennett and Malcolm Kuntz to solidify that defense moving forward. If you want the first pick in the draft, we have a path to trade up for that. If you think we can sign a Sam Darnold, there's no state income tax. Las Vegas, our stadium is second to none. it's a great city to live and raise your family in Henderson. You have to do your best to sell yourself to Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson. I do not want to hold on to Antonio Pierce out of fear that we can't do better because you're afraid that you can't sell yourself. My gut says Tom Brady and Mike Vrabel have a handshake deal. I hope so, because if it was up to me, Mike Vrabel would be the coach of the Raiders in 2025, with Josh McCown or Wes Welker being the offensive coordinator. If Mike McDaniel somehow gets fired, I don't think so. Maybe is the offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson is my second choice. And then maybe Liam Cohen and Antonio Pierce for option 3. But you cannot tell me with a straight face that Antonio Pierce is a better coaching option going forward than Mike Vrabel. So if there's a puncher's chance that you can sign Mike Vrabel, you gotta roll out the red carpet. I believe that the Raiders' job is better than the Jets' job. I believe it's better than the Giants' job if that becomes open. I believe it's better than the Saints' job. It's probably not better than the Bears' job because you assume you have your franchise in Caleb Williams, and it's probably not better than the Patriots' job because you assume you have your franchise in Drake May and Vrabel played for the Patriots. But assuming that Gerard Mayo keeps his job, I think we are the best team equipped to have Mike Vrabel come in because we don't need a lot of work with the roster. We need to identify the quarterback, whether or not he's on the roster in Aidan O'Connell or he's in the draft or free agency. No doubt about it. But all we need is a running back, another lineman, and maybe a linebacker. And we can flip the script on this thing. The main thing we need is stability and culture. 2 things that we thought Antonio Pierce was going to bring to the organization. And that hasn't come to fruition because they had a players and coaches meeting about how things were being inefficiently run. That's not a recipe for success. Mike Vrabel, this is not the Patriot way. This is the Mike Vrabel way. The team, like the Tennessee Titans, won a lot of games they shouldn't have, and he was a lot to do with that. So I agree with the poll. I do not believe Antonio Pierce saved his job. Only time will tell. That Black Monday is a week away. So a week from now, we'll probably find out. But Mike Vrabel's contract with the Browns, where he's like an offensive assistant or something, I don't know, has expired today, so he can interview with teams. If we have a chance to get him, I think you have to pull the trigger. So I think that's it for me today. Apologize to people who were watching the first stream who didn't yet get to join this one because it cut out. I don't know what happened. Everything said it was good on my end. We'll see if there's a problem that I need to fix. But we finished this one strong. Thank you to the people here that were watching. Thank you, Bleach Report, for having me. Wait a second. This might be my last recap. This isn't my last show on Bleach Report, but I believe this might be my last recap. I don't yet have my next schedule. I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say, but subscribe to my YouTube channel, join my Discord to get updates on that. You will be seeing me sometime next week, I believe. I just don't think it will be Monday. Keep an eye out for that. Might be a couple times a week. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. It's free after no charge to you. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.